Ngozi showed up at my husband's house that Saturday morning without warning. I wasn't there. I was half a word away. Still, I know every detail because she called me and told me, just like she always does, for as long as I've known her. She didn't call ahead. She just stood at the gate as if she was hauling something too heavy for a phone call. She wore her best wrapper, her mouth set tight, like a woman who's practiced what to say, but still isn't sure if it's the right thing. He opened the gate for her and let her in, made tea, because that's what you do when a neighbor turns up in the morning, right? He set down 2 cups in the living room that had been quiet for over a year. He waited across from her, all ears, probably because her face had already told him this was no small thing. She eyed the tea, then looked straight at him. She said, Emeka, Mary isn't coming back. He smiled at first, patient, polite, like a man who's heard it before. He said I'd return. I just needed some time. I was enjoying a change of scene, that kind of thing. But Ngozi's next words cut through. Emeka, she said, sharper this time. She has met someone. She's been seeing him for 8 months. She's filing for divorce. I've replayed that scene again and again in my head, built it out of her words until it feels like I was there. I can almost hear the silence settle in the sunlit living room. Lagos buzzing outside with generators and motorcycles. Someone always arguing somewhere, but inside, something fundamental shifting. I imagine Emeka's world reshaping itself around those 4 sentences. He asked who the man was. She told him, a white man, someone from the neighborhood. He asked if I loved him. She said yes. She said, I think it's the first time Mary has ever been loved the way she needs, or let her receive it. He said nothing for a while. Finally, he just asked her to start the beginning, to explain everything. So she told him. And I think I should tell it myself, not filtered through Ngozi or gossip or anyone else, just me. Setting it down for the record because I owe my own life that much. I am Mary Obiageli Okafor. Before I became Chukwuemeka's wife at 24, in a church in Enugu, my mother had been planning since I was 12. I spent my adulthood being useful, not loved, not seen, not celebrated, just useful. My life was cooking, cleaning, raising kids with the diligence of someone convinced that doing things right is the only version of well done she's going to get. I ran our house like a small business, systems, discipline, always running a list in my head of what needed doing and when and for whom. My husband wasn't cruel, I need to say that because it matters. He provided always, school fees, groceries, bills, the house, it was all sorted. He was present enough. He came home at the end of the day, filled the room with his size and his energy, but never brought any warmth with him. He just never saw me. There were things that mattered to me, small things maybe from the outside, huge if you are the person longing for them. I wanted to be shown off, not out of pride, more from hunger. When a woman gives everything, sometimes she only wants her man to be proud of her, to hold her hand in public, to introduce me with warmth, not obligation, to say, this is my wife, like it meant something to him. He never did. In his mind, he married me. What else was there to prove? Apparently, a lot. And then, the women. I'm not going to gloss this over for myself. Ngozi never did, so I won't either. He cheated. Not once. Not some one-night mistake. over and over for years. No discipline either. Sometimes with women I actually knew, names that came up at parties or meetings, where I had to sit, smile, and pretend not to notice. I always knew. I filed it away in the part of myself I used for things I couldn't change and had no choice but to carry. But I carried it year after year. It cost me. I could feel the change in my laugh, that subtle shift. I still smiled, still joked, and still warmed up any room. But something underneath had one thing, like a foot-worn step that only looks smooth years later, but you nearly slip on it. I didn't complain, never called my mother with the truth, never woke up Ngozi in the night to say, I can't do this anymore. I just managed the ways I've always had, quiet, self-contained, never a burden. I waited without knowing what I was doing. I didn't even know what I was waiting for. The call came on Wednesday, March in the morning. My daughter Ada, in labor in Birmingham. She wanted her mother. I packed in for 4 hours, said goodbye to my husband. He told me, greet Ada. He didn't come to the airport. I boarded the flight. Somewhere over the Atlantic, in the blue night with everyone asleep, under dim cabin lights, something cracked up in me. I couldn't have told you then, but I know now it was my first real breath in 31 years. Not air, I've been breathing forever, but this was a breath that was mine, a breath that was uninterrupted by beauty, a breath that didn't belong to anyone else. I stared out the window at the dark and cried a little, not from sadness, more from the shock of something inside me opening up and letting light in. Omuwo was supposed to last 6 weeks. The first time I held my granddaughter, something huge happened inside me. Yes, the overwhelming grandmother love, but also an ache, a sense of holding a baby girl who was new, still unwritten, still everything possible, a girl who hadn't learned yet who she was for. 6 weeks stretched longer. Ada said, Mom, I need you. So I stayed. Weeks turned into months. I was too busy living to step outside myself and notice what was happening. For maybe the first time, I found myself breathing, really breathing. I slept through the night in a bed that demanded nothing from me. I ate meals I didn't cook. I talked with Ada, the neighbors, people in the park, and these weren't conversations about everyone else's wants. People actually asked what I thought, what I liked, what I dreamed of before I got swallowed up by marriage and duty. I couldn't remember the last time anyone asked me those things. By the 5th month, I had found a cleaning job, early shifts, only a few hours, but enough to see money going into an account with just my name on it. I had never had that before. The first time I heard the pay slip for a long time, I was starting to remember who I was. I met David at a neighborhood gathering about 5 months in. Garden party, nothing fancy, a few people outside talking and drinking. Someone's birthday, I almost skipped it. My feet was paining me from work. I was going to stay home. Ada convinced me, Mama, go, I will mind the baby. You should do something that is just for you. So I changed and went. David leaned against my face, holding a cup of tea in both hands, staring at the flowers like a man trying to find his way back to something he had lost. He was 61, tall, grey at the edges, face lined in a way that made it interesting. Not the most handsome man there, but easily the most present. I looked at the roses and said to no one, those are beautiful. My late wife loved roses too, he said. I have been trying to learn, but I'm barely getting it right. He said late wife plainly, not fishing for anything, just the truth. I told him I was sorry. He said thanks, it has been 2 years. Some days the loss felt new, some days it felt like it belonged to another life. But he held out his hand. David. I said, Mary. He asked questions, not just surface ones. What did I want to be before all of this? What did I miss about home? He listened, not just waiting for his turn, and I could feel it. Time flew. My feet actually stopped hurting for 1 entire hour. I wasn't a wife or mother or caretaker. It was just me. We started seeing each other by accident at first. On my walks home after my morning shift, his street was along my regular routes. So the first time he just said good morning and I matched his pace. By the third time he was waiting with 2 cups of tea, offering one to me. Simple as that. He asked about things that hadn't been asked in 31 years. What did I want as a child? I said, a teacher. He laughed at how distant that seemed. He asked where it slipped away, and I said somewhere. I stopped being a person and became a role. He looked at me then, no pity, just understanding. He talked about Patricia, his wife of 34 years. Not a perfect marriage, but one they kept returning to. What he missed? The small things. Coming home to someone who cared, being known. I was quiet, and then without thinking I said, I don't think anyone has ever really known me. My husband has never asked how my day was, not once in 31 years. The truth hung in the air, vulnerable and wild. He didn't fill the space, just walked beside me, then said, that sounds very lonely. Not you poor thing, not men are terrible, just that sounds very lonely. I didn't cry. Something inside me loosened, just a tiny bit. The flowers came 7 weeks in on a Tuesday. I was finishing work, tired, lost in my thoughts. David waited at the corner with a bunch of yellow roses, just simple and hopeful. I passed the stall and thought of you. No idea why yellow felt right, but it did. I stared at them too long. Is that all right? He said. Hope I haven't. I grabbed them and thought. In 57 years, no one has ever bought me flowers. Not for my birthday, not for an anniversary, not just because it was Tuesday. And I happened to be on their mind. I took them home and stared at them for a long time. That evening, I called Ngozi and said, there is someone here. He asked for everything. That's what undid me. That's what felt so new and so kind. He asked genuinely, not like a man looking for permission he planned to ignore. He waited for the answer. The first time he reached for my hand and said, may I? Hand open. He waited. I put my hand in his and we walked, comfortable, quiet. I remembered all the things I've ever said to my husband that went in one ear and out of the other. And I thought, this is what it feels to be cared for. 57 years, and I was just learning that now. Suddenly, guilt, heavy as stone. I don't take vows lightly. I prayed on my knees in Ada's spare room. I wrote a journal. I called my pastor's wife. I asked vague questions about marriage and faith and what you owe to a promise broken long ago. I talked to Ada. One night, after the babies finally slept, she listened to me pour it all out. Mama, did you ever love Daddy? I tried, I said. Did he ever love you? She was looking at me with the eyes of a daughter who had seen everything and carried its weight into her whole life. He loved what I did for him, I said. I don't think he ever saw the difference. She was quiet for a while. Then, what do you want to do, Mama? The first time in 57 years, someone had asked me that, not what should I do, Not what fate or my mother or society demanded, what I wanted. I sat with it for a long time. I changed my mind a dozen times. I had decided to go back home, call Emeka, say I was booking a flight. Then I'll see David, just to walk, nothing complicated. And I'll feel that knot inside me twist again. One day, I actually bought a ticket, printed it, showed Dada, started packing in my head. That night, David came over. And the minute he saw me, he said, "You look heavy today." I said I booked a flight home. He nodded gently. "Come sit. Tell me how you're feeling about it. Not, don't go. Not what about us. Just tell me." I did. Guilt, obligation, exhaustion, all the things I'd never said out loud. He listened. No flinching, no shifting away from me. When I had finished, he said, "Mary, whatever you choose, knowing you has changed my life, and you are extraordinary. That won't change." Just like that, I cancelled the flight the next morning. Those months wore me down, not because I was starving myself, but because I was walking in two directions at once. I prayed, wrote, called Ngozi over and over. She never told me what to do. Once she said, "Mary, you have spent your whole life doing what is right for everyone else. Whatever you choose, I will stand with you." "Everyone else won't," I said. She shrugged. "They never do." My mother would have shame. She's 78 and stronger than you think. "What will people say?" "They will talk," she said. "Then they will find something else to talk about." I sat with it. Then one evening in November, in Ada's warm kitchen, I finally chose. Drama? No drama, no thunderclap. Simply, I chose myself, not what was expected or demanded, just me. I called David. He picked up quickly. I said, "I made a decision." He waited. "I'm staying." He paused. Hopeful, quiet. "I'm glad." No big performance, just two words, honest and real. I hung up, sat at the kitchen table, and felt something new flooding. Belonging maybe, joy. I felt chosen. At 57 years old, for the first time, I truly felt chosen. I filed for divorce 3 weeks later. After Ngozi finished telling Emeka all of this, he still sat untouched on the table. He looked around the silent living room at the space that used to be mine, at everything I had left behind, at the absence that had been quietly growing all this time. This time, he finally saw it for what it was. A woman who had left a room she had been trapped in 31 years. "I didn't know she was unhappy," he told Ngozi quietly. Ngozi looked at him, not angry, just straightforward. "She wasn't unhappy loudly, but you were there. You lived there too." He said nothing. "And the women, did you imagine she did not know?" Still nothing from him. "And the gatherings, introducing her like a cop. Did you ever think she didn't feel it?" Silence. Ngozi stood, fixed her wrapper. "I'm not here to punish you, Emeka, but let me say this. A man bought your wife flowers on a Tuesday just because he remembered what she mentioned in passing. He asked how she was, then he listened. He asked permission before he touched her hand. When did you last do any of these things for Mary?" The room stayed quiet. "She's happy," Ngozi said. "Really happy for the first time I can remember. She's learning what it feels like to be chosen instead of just convenient for someone." She walked to the door and stopped, hand on the door. "She will always be the mother of your kids. She will always have been your wife, but she's not coming back. And if you're really honest with yourself, you already knew she was gone long before she got on that plane." Then she left. I wasn't there for what came next, but I know my husband. I can picture him sitting in that silent house. He's still growing cold, replaying 31 years of dinners that just appeared without him ever asking who made them. A house that stayed spotless without him stopping to wonder whose hands kept it that way. A woman whose moods and schedule and needs he never tried to learn the way she learned his. I imagine him remembering the flowers some stranger bought his wife, flowers on an ordinary Tuesday. I think about now and then, not with anger, just with this odd sense of distance, like looking at an old photo of yourself and recognizing the face, but not quite feeling like that person anymore. I'm still figuring out what it means to be chosen. Some days it feels strange, like wearing a coat that fits, but feels unfamiliar all the time. David still asks me how my day was every single day. And somehow, every time, I'm just a little surprised. 31 years it took for anyone to really try to see me. In the end, I was the one who finally opened the door.